Hi, this is Starkey Sowers. Welcome again to another Plus Program training series. Today's topic is macronutrients, fats, and this is part 2. So we've been talking a lot about macronutrients in the last three series, a couple things about macronutrients. They are large, ultimately the large nutrients. When you think of foods, when you look at the composition of foods, that indeed is probably proteins, fats, or carbohydrates. The micronutrients, of course, are going to be vitamins and minerals. All right, so with that said, I think ultimately, when we grasp like macronutrients, we definitely realize that they are definitely the driving force of nutrition, and having the right balance of these macronutrients makes a huge difference when it comes to our health. A couple of thoughts about fats for sure is this. First of all, they are absolutely essential. Our body needs them without a question. They are healthy, especially when they're consumed in balance. Ultimately, they produce health in our bodies. The avoidance of fats is not a good thing. You definitely don't want to avoid fats. With that thought, a couple of things about it. They provide energy, as we were saying in the first session. They roughly give us about 9 calories per gram, which is about double the amounts. So it's what we call long-lasting energy. When you think of proteins, you think of fats. Fats definitely provide the long-lasting energy. Proteins would be second. First would be carbs. They're quick and direct and right to the point. But the thing with carbs is they kind of run out after 3 or 4 hours. So what kind of carries us off and on throughout the whole day is fats and fatty acids. They keep that energy level nice and even throughout the day. All right. So the other thing is structural components. When we look at fats, they're part of the nerves and part of the brain. We said, hey, look, if somebody calls you a fathead, that's a compliment, because that means you got a lot of good fats and a good sized brain. That means that you're smart as can be. All right. So the other thing we do is we look at skin. Skin is a combination of proteins as well as fatty acids. So fatty acids are literally in every single cell throughout our body as a structural component. Couple things about fats for sure. For years, a lot of people have looked at fats and they ultimately think of fats as like, well, they're the culprit of all the bad diseases or all the bad problems. That actually is not true. Fats are absolutely necessary for the health of our body. In fact, we're supposed to consume roughly about 25 to 35% of our calories from fats. And so ultimately, with that said, we kind of look at a little bit of a craze that was going on, especially for the last 30 or 40 years. We saw in the 1970s that fats kind of got blamed for everything from cardiovascular disease to obesity. Like if you eat fats, then you're going to get fat and all these other different things. We saw a nice little trend that's actually been taking place. So as we've decreased the amount of fat consumption in the United States, went to fat-free foods and things of that nature, we actually had an increase in obesity. So believe it or not, fats actually help to keep our metabolism intact, running efficiently. So don't forget that. Fats are actually helpful for us and actually help to lower fat, not necessarily increase it. As a nation, we've actually experienced just the opposite. Cardiovascular disease. We look at cardiovascular disease and we think that fats are always the enemy. Ultimately, a couple different things. Fats and balance become critical here. We have unsaturated fats and saturated fats. Unsaturated fats, especially polyunsaturated fats, omega-3 specifically, have a great tendency to help to lower total cholesterol and help improve cardiovascular risk in the body. All right. So it's not only the types of fats, but it's the ultimately a good consumption of fats as well. Avoidance of fats is actually not smart under any situation for that matter. All right. So the types of fats being critical, a couple different things like that. Let's kind of look at the last component. So when we're looking at the last component, we see a couple unique things. Number one, when it comes to fats in the American diet, typically we consume way too many saturated fats. Typically about 30% of the total fats that we consume are saturated fats. We're ultimately supposed to get it down to about 10 to maybe 15 or 20% being the max. So we're probably consuming a little bit too much saturated fats. Some of the good saturated fats, such as medium chain and short chain triglycerides, typically won't add to the component of creating cholesterol problems or imbalances in cardiovascular disease. But some of the big chain, long chain fats, typically that you'll find in animal meats, are going to be more of the problem than anything else. The other component is cholesterol. Of course, we have cholesterol in different foods. The consumption of cholesterol is actually somewhat controversial. Whether it increases it dramatically or not, that's kind of another factor that we've been looking at, kind of following really close, but currently not seeing a lot of different information. For years, it used to be believed that eating cholesterol was literally the problem with all cholesterol problems in the blood. We actually find that eating some eggs throughout the week actually doesn't raise cholesterol to a large percent of any type of degree. All right, so what does all this mean? Ultimately, when we look at it, we've got to have fats in balance. We want definitely a good amount of saturated or unsaturated fats over the saturated fats, kind of maybe get that back into check. A couple different things when we look at omega-3 fats as well. Omega-3 fats are super beneficial in a lot of different areas. First of all, brain health as well as mental calmness. Omega-3 fatty acids definitely are a proponent for that. The other thing is they balance out cardiovascular disease risk. Another thing that they do is they also help with metabolism. So you definitely want to get those omega-3 fatty acids. Where do you get those omega-3 fatty acids? Fatty fish, great source. So salmon and mackerel are two, as well as cod, are three different great sources of it. The other thing that we look at when we look at some simple food selections are nuts and seeds. So hemp, chia, as well as flax and walnuts kind of give you a great omega-3 source as well. Finally, some fruits, avocados, as well as cranberries are great sources of omega-3s. Supplementation in my boat is probably one of the best ways to ensure that I'm going to get adequate omega-3s every single day. I consume fish oils, and I actually like the Barleans fish oil. It's kind of a nice way to get it into the system. All right, so that kind of gives you a final shot at macronutrients and fats, so to speak. And unfortunately, this is also the final shot with the Plus Program video series. So if this is something that you actually liked, you definitely might want to try contacting Clark's and talk to their marketing department and say, hey, we want some more of those videos, kind of like those. So that would about wrap it all up. Good night, and out we go.